G'day everyone and welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mark. I'm a retired Kiwi bloke. I'm a huge rugby fan and I live here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Welcome to today's show. Okay, getting on to this last game of the Autumn International Series, Ireland versus Australia from the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. It's going to be a cracker in the weekend. And lots of interesting things to talk about. The two teams have now been selected. I'm going to give you my views on those, as well as giving you my opinion on what I think is going to happen in this game, the last one of the season for these two teams. So let's check out the teams first of all. Start off with the visitors, Australia. Now I'm liking very much what I'm seeing here. I don't know how much Joe Schmidt's hand's been forced on this one, or how much he's been planning towards this game against Ireland. Probably the second one there, because I'm sure he's got a very, very big desire to try and put one over Andy Farrell in this particular game. Looking at the Wallabies front row, and first of all, we've got James Slipper starting this game. Now, this could be a masterstroke by Joe Schmidt, because we saw last week the Australian scrum having a little bit of problems against Scotland in the early days, and James Slipper came on and made the difference there, so hopefully he'll do the same in this game. We've got Amosa as hooker, and the other prop, we've got Taniela Tupou coming back into this team, which is another interesting selection. A lot of people have been asking whether he's been out due to bad form. I've seen him had a couple of shockers in that Wallaby jersey this year, but let's hope he's going to bring one of his best games, because when he's on it, Taniela Tupou, he can be one of the best props in the world. And of course, he's a big beast to take down if he ever gets the ball in general play as well. Moving on to the locks for the Wallabies, and we're going to see Nick Frost and Jeremy Williams, a great combination, I think, these two, and they should be starting for the Wallabies, and it's good to see them back into the selection for this weekend's game. Very, very happy. Then moving on to the Lucies, and perhaps one of the best growing young trio in world rugby at the moment, as far as Rob Valentini, Fraser McWright and Harry Wilson. Very, very good trio, and expect them to put up a huge battle against the Irish Lucies in this game, and this is going to be one area that I'm going to be watching very closely indeed. So from a neutral point of view, very happy with this Australian starting 8. I think they're going to give the Irishmen a good competitive battle. We'll have to see how it plays out. Let me know in the comments what you think about this Australian front 8 to start the game. Okay, moving on to the Australian back line, and starting at number 9, we've got Jake Gordon back again. If you've been following me on X during these games, as you should be, I've been making a few comments about Tate McDermott. I feel he's the better starting number 9 for Australia, but Jake Gordon is being preferred by Joe Schmidt, so we'll have to see how he goes. Then Noah Lolesio, who I don't think had a good game against Scotland last weekend. A combination of pressure he was put under, but his composure was pretty bad as well, and his kicking for touch with penalties was absolutely a shocker. That's something that he needs to improve and work on. So we'll see Noah Lolesio once again in the number 10 jersey for the Wallabies. Then moving out to the centres, were they going to be forced to make some changes because of injury? Well, the answer is no. We're going to see Len Ekitau and Joseph Suaalii, and it's going to be interesting to see how Suaalii is after that knock to his wrist. Was it fully recovered, or is he playing under some pain? We'll see whether he wears a guard on that wrist during this game. Len Ekitau got a big knock during that game against Scotland as well. I noticed that during the first half, and he did carry on, but I was wondering whether he might be sitting this one out, but no, he's coming in. So we're going to see those two dynamic centres in Ekitau and Suaalii in this Australian team. Then moving out to the wings, on one side we've got the Mr. Dependable in Andrew Callaway. On the other side we've got the unpredictable Max Jorgensen. I think this is a weak link for the Australians at the moment. They haven't been able to settle on an opposite winger from Andrew Callaway to really consolidate themselves. And I saw Max Jorgensen make a number of errors last weekend against the Scottish, so he'll be wanting to up his game, and Ireland, I'm sure, will be peppering him with some high ball. At fullback, we're going to see Tom Wright. Mr. Consistency played very well, I thought, throughout this autumn international campaign. One of Australia's top players, I believe, in the Northern Tour so far. Expect him to create some opportunities from counter-attacking and being very strong in the backfield. So Tom Wright is back in at number 15. So there we go. That's the starting 15 for Australia for this particular game. Now let's have a look at their bench and who they're going to bring on throughout the game. As with any team, I hope that the bench comes on purely from strategic reasons and not through injuries. And if we have a look at the Australian bench, we're going to see the front row replacements of Pollard, Bell and Alalatoa. It's going to be interesting to see what impact they got. I think this is going to be a really important part of the game, the impact of the bench, as it typically is in these close test matches these days. And then the other two forwards we're going to see come on for the Wallabies are going to be Salakai Lotto and also Langi Gleeson. I really like these two coming off the bench. I think Lotto is not the one to be starting these games for the Australians, particularly when Nick Frost and Jeremy Williams are not injured. And it's good to see Lotto coming on. He makes a big impact. Watch out for him in this particular game, as does Langi Gleeson. So really good bench for Australia in the forwards. I think they're going to make an impact. Let's see if they actually do. And then moving into the backs that'll come off the bench for the Australians. And we're going to see Tate McDermott as the number 9. Be interesting to see when Joe Schmidt introduces him to this game if things are not going well with Jake Gordon. And then we're going to see Edmed on the bench, and he's replaced Donaldson, which is an interesting one. The young player that had a couple of games with North Harbour earlier in the year did very, very well. And I have watched him play on a couple of occasions, been pretty impressed with Edmed. So let's see whether he gets a run towards the end of this game. And then the last back replacement for the Wallabies is going to be Harry Potter. Yes, I did get that right. It is Harry Potter coming on. Scored a brilliant try against Scotland last weekend. If you haven't watched the last few seconds of that try in slow motion, go back and have a look at it. For a debutant playing his first international test match last weekend, I thought Harry Potter was the only one that showed a lot of composure under pressure for the Wallabies when he put that ball down and scored that fantastic try. So there we go. That's the Wallabies outfit that's going to take on Ireland this weekend. I think it's a very, very good team. There's a couple of areas of weakness. Lolosio at 10, depending on whether he's on his game. Max Jorgensen on the wing. That's another area that I think Ireland might try to exploit, particularly early in the game, and put him under some pressure. Talking about Ireland, let's have a look at their outfit now and see who Andy Farrell has selected for their last game of this year's 2024 Autumn International Series. So it seems to me that Andy Farrell has been pretty happy with his starting 8 so far in the Autumn International Series. In this game, we're going to see Porter, Kelleher and Beelum starting off in the front row for the Irish. Now, I think this front row contest is going to be very, very good. James Slipper, of course, well over 100 caps for the Australian Wallabies. Taniela Tupou, a big guy and can put on a lot of pressure. So keep our eyes on that front row battle. I think it's going to be very, very interesting. And then in the locks for Ireland, we're going to see Joe McCarthy and Ryan again. And those two have been playing pretty well. Joe McCarthy I've been constantly impressed with, and watch him to have a big one against the Wallabies this weekend. And in the back three, in terms of the loosies, we're going to see Byrne, we're going to see Van der Fleer, and we're going to see Caelan Doris. So again, I mentioned it with the Aussies. I think this is going to be an area of the game that's going to be really, really good to watch. I think the Aussies are going to give it a go against these Irish in the breakdown. Let's make sure we don't see too many penalties as a result of their over-enthusiastic adrenaline pumping from the Wallabies, because I think that's an area they could get pinged on a few occasions. Okay, so that's the forwards are going to start the game for Ireland. Let's move on to the back line now. Number 9, Jamison Gibson Park. Who else would you put in there? And then at number 10, we're seeing Sam Prendergast being given another shot. And then moving outside, we're going to see Bundy Archie, man of the match last weekend for the Irish. Brilliant game. And who said he's out of form this year? Come on, Bundy Archie is back on the stage again. And we're going to see Robbie Henshaw in number 13, which is interesting. Gary Ringrose has been put down on the bench for this one. Then on the wings, we're going to see the old duo back together again. James Lowe and Mac Hansen. Of course, we didn't see that last weekend. We will see it this weekend. And watch out, as I always say with Ireland, James Lowe and that left foot, he gets them out of trouble on a lot of occasions when they're deep in the defensive area. So James Lowe and that left foot is one of the things I like to watch with this Irish team. The back in the number 15 jersey, who else but Hugo Keenan on this occasion for the Irish. So a very good backline. I'm going to be very excited to see how they go. We've got two really good backlines in this game, and I just hope that the game is open enough for them both to give each other a hard time, both on offence and defence, because I think it'll be a thrilling rugby match to watch. It could be high scoring in that respect if both of these backlines get away, so watch out for that one. Now let's move on to the Irish bench, and who are they going to bring on to do the damage in the second half? And again, let's hope there's no injuries, and let's hope it's purely a strategic change for the Irish. So coming off the bench for the Irish, and in the front row, we're going to see Gus McCarthy, who played brilliantly last weekend, and one of you in the comments made mention of that particularly. You didn't want to focus too much on the Sam Prendergast situation, and I can understand why. But yes, I should have acknowledged more last weekend that Gus McCarthy had a brilliant game. He was very, very good in the set pieces and also in open play, setting up a couple of opportunities there. So watch out for Gus McCarthy. He was really, really good. Cian Healy again coming in as a replacement in the front row, and Young O'Toole coming on again for another opportunity. So a couple of young guys in here for Ireland to come off the bench in the front row, and again, interesting area to really watch for them in this game. And where you have young guys, you've got to have a couple of old heads as well, and we're going to see Henderson and O'Mahony as the last two replacements in the forwards. And I want to see Henderson keep his discipline under control a little bit in this game. He's been costing Ireland a few penalties throughout the Autumn International Series, and Peter O'Mahony, well, on his day he can do the same thing, but let's see how those two go when they come off the bench. Now moving to the back line in terms of replacements for Ireland, and we're going to see young Casey come on again at halfback. Thought he's been playing really well, but it's difficult to keep Jamison Gibson-Park out of this Irish team. We're going to see Jack Crowley coming on as well. And of course, if Sam Prendergast does happen to slip up on any occasions, I'm sure Andy Farrell will bring Jack Crowley on. And then the last substitute in the back line for Ireland is going to be Gary Ringrose. So again, we're seeing Robbie Henshaw start this game, and we'll see Ringrose come off the bench. So that's the Irish team to play against Australia on Saturday. What do you think of the team? Anybody that's missing there, that who is available for selection, hasn't got into your Irish team, let me know. I'd like to hear in the comments. Now, what's going to happen in this game? Let's talk about that. So a couple of stats to start off with. Head-to-head, Ireland lead 4-1 of their recent 5 games. So that's a really interesting one to read into. However, the team that scores first is likely to win 80% of the time. So that's a big stat. So if the Aussies sneak in a try early in this game, are you going to be a believer that they could still go on and win this game? Now, out of their last 5 games, each of these teams, the Irish have won 3 out of 5. And the Wallabies have won 2 out of 5, so not too much in it. And if I would go back into their recent history of the last 5 games against each other, there's only been 1 try in it on the scoreboard. So they've always played pretty close games, and they've always scored around about the 20-24 points each game. So watch out for that particular scoreline. That could be interesting in this game. But look, there's a couple of things that could happen in this game for me. The Australian defence is still vulnerable as far as I'm concerned, and I know it's an area of Joe Schmidt's concern as well. So he'll be looking to make sure that the Irish don't take advantage of that. We saw it against Scotland last weekend when they opened up in that 10-minute period in the second half. That really gave the emphasis to Scotland in that game. What I like about the trajectory that this Wallabies team on is the forwards are starting to do more and more good stuff from set pieces, and their bench impact is significant in each of the games. They've played always better in the second half, except for that performance against Scotland last weekend. Now, we're going to find out whether that was a blimp in the road or whether it's something that Australia still has a problem with, so watch out for the impact on the bench. But the Wallabies have been playing good second half rugby throughout this year. If we go right back to that game against the All Blacks in Sydney, they came storming back in that game. They did it against Argentina in Argentina as well and got that point win in the last minute. And they've done it well on the last against England. Of course, they came back and won, and they did it a great second half against Wales as well. It was only last weekend against Scotland. So as I said, let's see whether or not that was an inconsistency or whether Australia can come bouncing back in the second half of this game. Now, we saw a lot of penalties being given away by the Wallabies last weekend, and that is a concern to me as well, because it could lead to a yellow card. And against this Irish team, that's the last thing you want to endure. So I think we need to keep our eye out on the whistle being blown and whether or not there's going to be a hand going into the pocket to give the Wallabies a yellow card to send them off. So they're going to have to be particularly precise around the breakdown area, because that's where they could get into trouble. One, with their tackle height, and also with not getting the timing right as far as getting into that breakdown. And that's an area of potential weakness for the Wallabies. And then, as I've mentioned, two other areas, Lolesio at number 10. If he's not on his game for the Wallabies, then they tend to struggle. So it doesn't matter how good Ikitau and Sua Ali are playing outside, there's going to be a problem if Noah Lolesio is not on his game, particularly with his strategic kicking in this game. And also from the tee, if Australia do get the opportunity to keep the scoreboard ticking over, Lolesio is going to have to make sure he nails all of those penalty opportunities. But for me, it's Max Jorgensen on the wing for the Wallabies that is a weak link. And I think if Ireland can exploit this a little bit, which I think they will do, both under the high ball but also running at his line, I think that's where we could see some breakdown of this Australian defensive line. So keep your eye on Max Jorgensen in this game. From an Irish attacking point of view, it could be significant. The other thing I think we're going to see in this game is Jamison Gibson-Park's going to do a little bit of sniping runs. He's going to put the Australian inside channel defence under a bit of pressure, and I think that's also going to help this Irish team to open up this Australian backline. And then with Prendergast, he's been showing already that he's got that little depth touch when it comes to passing the ball, whether it be setting someone through a gap or just delaying the pass a little bit to confuse the defensive line. And I think that's a special talent he's got. So let's see how he sets up Bundy Aki and also Robbie Henshaw outside him in this particular game. Also look for Matt Hansen and James Lowe to be running in on different angles off their wing to get the ball from Prendergast to have a chance to go up the Australian inside channel and through the middle of the Wallabies. That's another area that I think Ireland might be able to attack against the Wallabies in this game. I think it's going to be a close one, and despite the hype I've been sharing about the Wallabies' trajectory so far this season, I think Ireland are going to come away with this one, but I think it's going to be close. 2, 3, maybe 4 points in it. But if Australia get into trouble like they did against Scotland last weekend in the second half, then Ireland could run in a few tries in the second half. So the Australian defensive pattern throughout this game is going to be the most vital part of the game as far as I'm concerned. If Australia are able to man up and provide a good structure to the defensive line, they'll keep Ireland under pressure and they'll keep them away from their try line. But if that goes the other way, expect Ireland to put on a few tries against this Wallaby team. So yes, I'm picking an Ireland win, even if Australia play really well, but it's going to be close. It could be an Ireland blowout if that Australian defensive line blows apart in the second half like we saw what happened against Scotland. I don't expect that to happen. I think they'll have their heads in the game a little bit more, and I think Joe Schmidt would have worked on them this week to get their structures right. And I think we'll see a similar performance as we saw against Wales and England in terms of Australia putting it together for 80 minutes. I hope so for the sake of rugby. We've seen some brilliant rugby throughout this season's Autumn International Series, and I'd really like the last game to be a cracker, as well as I'm sure you will do as well. Now, if you're going along to the Aviva Stadium on Saturday, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts around the game, and also come back for my review video and tell me what it was like with the atmosphere and everything else that took place in the game on the weekend. Of course, I'll be making a review video after the game, so come back and I'll give you all the details around the game point by point, as well as looking at the players that stood out for me and whether or not some of these things that I'm talking about in this preview video actually came to fruition throughout the game. If you have been enjoying my content throughout the year, why not hit the subscribe button, line up for all the rugby that's going to come in the next season, and be part of the channel here on Inside Rugby with Mark. I'd be very grateful. Also, if you've liked this particular video, make sure you give it a like and a thumbs up, and that helps me with the YouTube algorithm as well. So the last thing to say is make sure you drop your comments about what you think is going to happen in this game, about the selections on either side, and what do you think the critical differential will be from each team. I'd really like to read your thoughts in the comments. Okay, so until after the game, keep enjoying your rugby, everyone. Stay well, stay safe, no matter where you are in the world, and I'll see you again really soon here on Inside Rugby with Mark. Until next time, it's adios from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Until then, bye for now.